Jai Hind viewers, welcome back to another panel discussion from MRO Digest forums. The topic which we have picked today is academia, R&D and industry linkages. It's a very important topic, and it is something if we are able to find some better way to go ahead or take it forward in a meaningful manner, then it is already being done, then it will be a game changer. We have with us a very eminent panel. First, we have with us Lieutenant General N.B. Singh, who served as the Director General of Corps of Electronics and Mechanical Engineers and Director General Information Systems, and was a founding member of the Armed Forces Tribunal, Jabalpur. He specializes in armored fighting vehicles and played a key role in the design and development of a bulletproof vehicle Takshak, Arjun armored recovery vehicle, and made a significant contribution in the development of the Dhanush gun system. He has undergone specialized training in Germany on off-highway vehicles and served in Moscow as a military attaché technical. We also have with us Major General Ranjit Ghosh. He served as Additional Director General of Corps of Electronics and Mechanical Engineers. He is a postgraduate gold medalist from IIT Madras in maintenance engineering. He was Chief Managing Director of an Army base workshop dealing with A vehicles. At strategic level, he steered life cycle engineering support for Army's capital acquisitions and revenue procurements. General Ghosh has authored books on global defense industries. And finally, we have with us Commodore Samaddar. He graduated from IIT Roorkee in 1978. Sujeet began his career as an engineer trainee with Tata Consulting Engineers, Mumbai, after being commissioned into the Indian Navy in 1980. He held various staff appointments and commanded 4 warships before taking an early retirement in 2009 in the highly prestigious appointment of Principal Director, Naval Plans, Naval Headquarters, New Delhi, responsible for acquisition, infrastructure and budget of the Indian Navy. He is an alumnus of United Nations University, Tokyo, prestigious National Institution of Defense Studies, Tokyo, and the University of Madras, Chennai. He was the member secretary of Niti Aayog Task Force on drafting India's first comprehensive national maritime policy. He also drafted India's first comprehensive and integrated national material recycling policy. General N.B. sir, may I request you to start by giving us your initial thoughts on this very important topic? General N.B. sir.
Yeah, thank you, Justej. And my compliments for picking up a very interesting topic, because as you know, the role of academic institutions is primarily to create a talent pool or a group of knowledge workers, and it is these knowledge workers who are then required to fuel innovation using the research grants which are jointly provided to these academic institutions. Now, sadly, over the years, we all have been to all these institutions, be it IITs, be it the NITs and all, and we have seen that in the final year, the quality of research which is being done at the postgraduate level. On our part, at times, we from the defense, since we keep sponsoring officers to these institutions, we have also tried to give them some problem areas which are there in defense to carry out some R&D work. But my experience has been that nothing much has come out. On the other hand, industry is the entity which is required to place these innovations, to put these innovations into the development pipeline or the production pipeline and commercialize it. Lately, I'll say last few decades, it's the industry which has also created, R&D establishments within themselves, be it pharma, be it biotech, be it automobiles, world over. They have created this setup, possibly because these linkages had a lot of latency. They took a lot of time. For example, if you see all the efforts to get the vaccine for COVID was primarily carried out in private industry and private labs. Government, of course, is one of the major players because it is able to provide the funds. And we have seen in defense world over, primarily it is the government which puts most of the funds, even if the research is being done in a private academic institution. Now, in India, whatever research R&D is being done in the field of defense is primarily with the government, and that too with the R&D establishments. And I feel that till the time this does not change and innovation gets fueled or driven by the private sector, things will not change so much. And because, whatever we may say, the R&D establishments, be it in the defense domain or the other laboratories, they have got used to a particular system of working. And you take any of their policies, the policy on IPR, the policy on what work is to be done, even to the extent that you go to them with a little advanced version of the system they want you to develop, they find it very, they are reluctant to accept that. Whatever has been decided and prepared by them is what you have to ultimately provide. So I think till the time, again, a systems approach is not taken. And a systems approach is important because then we very clearly know that who are the entities in that system and what each entity is required to do. So here again, in the field of this R&D, the members of the ecosystems are not only the academic institution and the industry, but you have a host of suppliers who are also required to provide, things to carry out this work. And then the most important is the consumer. It is these four, that means the companies, the academic institutions, the suppliers, and the consumer, who together form the ecosystem. And there has to be a very high level of communication and networking between these, because if this does not happen, then I don't think you can have innovations being fueled in the laboratories, but I don't think we'll be able to see that they really into the development pipeline. And government, of course, is the major player. All this has to happen under the overarching control of the government. And I feel in India, there are some models which have been adopted by countries abroad. I will talk about two models. One is, of course, the model here in Silicon Valley, where I am presently located. And the second one, of course, is Israel. So I'll talk about these and how they have been able to, achieve remarkable success in this field. And the kind of research work, innovations that have been carried out there and how they have entered not only the defense domain, but also civilian applications.
Thank you very much, sir, for the initial points that you have given. it is certainly true that if you can get this together, like where you are now located, then a lot of benefits accrue from that. So we'll talk about that more later. May I now request General Ghosh to give his initial thoughts on this topic? General Ghosh, please.
Thank you, sir, and Jai Hind viewers. The subject is academia, R&D, and industry linkages. So what I get out of the subject is that the link is basically the R&D, which is the linking between the academia and the industry. So it would be right to have a look at what kind of research and development is there in India today. And I think stats on the subject point towards what are our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and vulnerabilities in this particular R&D ecosystem. So why I say so is because your entire policy or planning in terms of boosting R&D linkage between these two is depending on hard facts, which are basically the evidence on which you will prepare your policies as well as your planning for the allocations and other things. So if we look at the stats, we also look at the stats in the international comparisons. There are certain guidelines which have been given by the UNESCO and others for, and then you have all these indexes which come up. Firstly, you have the global expenditure on R&D, which we have seen is on the rise. Today, we have mostly it is the US and China, which is contributing most as far as the R&D expenditure is concerned. It is nearly about 2+ trillion, and it is likely to touch 3 trillion. So in this, the Indian expenditure over the last decade has surely gone up in terms of money value. It is nearly doubled plus over the last 10 years, as per the stats. And this is a good sign. But at the same time, even the as a percentage of GDP in terms of the PPP, we have surely showed an increase by, again, roughly about 80 to 90% increase in the last decade. So these are two aspects as far as the gross expenditure on research and development is concerned. At the same time, what ND brought out, entire research and development in Indian context has been dominated by the public sector. And that too, because primarily we opened up subsequently to the private sector. So the entire model is skewed in terms of the developed economies, which have got the private sector pushing the whole game as of now, as far as R&D is concerned. Coming on to the government sector, what we find is nearly participation of the government sector, be it the state government, central government, or the education institutions and public sector R&D. These really constitute about 60-40 ratio as of today, maybe lesser, 30, 35, 36% by the private sector and the balance by the government sector. As per the government sector is concerned, again, the bulk of it expenditure or the R&D funding goes to the strategic sectors. It is primarily the DRDO, which hogs about 33%, 1/3 of this about of the R&D allocations which are coming in. Then you have the Department of Space, which is also consuming, as well as the atomic energy. Besides this, this itself about constitutes 60%, and about 10, 12, 15% goes to the agriculture research. And rest is left for the academia in terms of the other agencies, be it your DST or CSIR and all these ICMR and others which are there into the fray. So this kind of a public-private involvement is there as far as India is concerned. While we are at about 35, 36% in the private sector, China and other developing economies or developed economies and emerging economies are already at about 70% plus in the private sector domain. I don't blame the Indian thought process on this, because we have grown from a public sector over the years for about till 90s, and thereafter around 2000 onwards, we have started opening up. So the private sector participation has to increase, surely. How it will happen, we can discuss in future. As far as the emerging economies is concerned, we also find that the higher education investment in R&D is the poorest, is not poorest, is very poor as far as India is concerned. And at the same time, because this is primarily because the funding that was available to the academia, which carries out primarily your based on funding available through all these DST and CSIR and other funds which are coming in, that amount firstly is not adequate for their extramural research and other things. The fellowships, scholarships, the fund availability, the timely availability, the processes of acquiring that fund, expending that fund. There are lots of guidelines, rules, regulations which have been quite restrictive. Not that the academia has been very good at it. They have not utilized the lab funds and other things also correctly, whatever are the reasons. Plus, there are bulk of the R&D in the academia has got concentrated with the prime institutions, primarily the initially the 5 IITs and thereafter the other IITs and NITs have more or less hogged the major funding for obvious reasons, because they were the ones who could deliver marketable or commercial products as General ND has brought out, which is primarily the result of a basic research being carried out by academia and then applying it onto a specific use. But that part was okay. But what is not happening was the while the basic was only into your sort of experimental or your explanatory research, descriptive research, which was going on. The problem was that we had the basic sciences strong, which was your physics, chemistry, and all these stream maths and other things. But the moment you come on to researching from basic research to applied research, the conversion was less from applied research to developmental research, where you are looking at developing newer technologies in terms of either the material or the designs or the processes or the products. This conversion was very poor. And once this conversion doesn't take place, thereafter comes the next conversion into engineering product, which is the marketability of industry linking up. So this is the actual gradual scale of basic research to applied research to developmental research to the engineering product and commercialization and industry linkage. So this sort of a linkage was weak in terms of the funding that was available. Also, if you see the entire ecosystem was finding the validation of what is your performance is based on a number of factors, such as your they have the global innovation index, where we were way down and have now moved up to around 40th, I think 41st and now 40th maybe this year or last year. And this particular innovation index is a result of what kind of a strong policies that you have for science, research, innovation, engineering ecosystem that you create. So the culture has to be created of having all these things together. Then only will your academia be able to deliver the way we are looking at. Of course, the link of the industry is very much there. Now, the industry participation has gone up. It is, if we see, it is primarily the prime institutions who have been getting into partnerships, getting into consultancies, getting into exchange of faculties, taking the mutual strengths of both industry and academia in the prime institutions. Be it each of these IITs have got their own models. When I went through their sites, and they're very encouraging models. If I remember correctly, 1991, when I was doing my MTech in IIT Madras, that was the start of we were speaking that time that there is some kind of a industry outreach which has to start from the IITs, and that was just the nascent stage of 90s when this was being spoken about. But now we have gone into right from research centers to research consultancies to your technology innovation hubs to all those things what we listen and to as to how it has progressed. But this is limited to those primes mostly, and there are very few high levels of educational institutes which are there today, though there are about 1,000 plus, and there are about 40,000 odd colleges as you read in the papers. But each one of them, very few, about I think 1% of them actually do very high level of R&D or research in terms of developing prototypes, or at least the lab bench prototypes what they can do, as far as the academia is concerned. Besides that, you have host of R&D institutions. I think about maybe 1,000 or so maybe today, which is all belonging to public, private sectors, and even global research centers. The MNCs have started pushing in global research centers in India. So the thrust is on, but yet you find we have progress, we have come up. But today, if you see your global domestic expenditure on research and development, you as a percentage of GDP, you are still where you were about 10 years back. I wrote that book on R&D, though that was defense R&D, but I bought in the civil R&D context. It used to be 0.8 somewhere about 2008, 9, 10, and now today also you have further dropped. You have slipped to 0.56. So as a percentage of GDP, your research allocations is very poor. And this is what has to be looked into, and this is where the bridge comes. The mutual strengths are known to each. Industry knows the strength of the academia. Academia knows the strength of the industry. Both have to interface in order to deliver commercially good goods. And especially today, when the entire economy is based on your innovative cutting-edge technologies and innovative cutting-edge products, so as to have your innovative incremental designs and not disruptive designs, which is ideal. And you don't have any open new markets. And the entire market, the global market, is shifting towards the east. So opportunities are plenty. This linkages have to only mature and develop. And yes, there's a major person involved, that is the government. The government policies, incentives, structures, equitable distribution, merit-based allocations is what is required. And I think we have started moving in that direction. And I'm sure in the days to come, we will only progress. Those are the opening remarks.
Thank you very much, General Ghosh, for all those facts and figures and drawing back to your earlier research, the book you written, and how you connected to today, and you were giving us a complete mosaic of the various aspects involved in this rather important and very largely spread out topic. So now may I request Commodore Sujeet Samaddar to give his initial thoughts on this topic. Sujeet, please.
Thank you very much. I think very fascinating listening to both General Ghosh and General NB on a subject which is quite close to me. Very quickly, I think the continuum as described by both General Ghosh and General NB sir has been very clearly identified. The continuum is actually starts with science, and from science you go to engineering, from engineering you go to technology, and from technology you go to product. This is the continuum that does. The principles of science are firm and they're well known, and the fundamental research that goes into developing new theories of science is actually a continuum that the academics work on. It's only in the once the principles of science are established, only then that new principles of science or new understanding of science is developed, whether it's physics, chemistry, or whatever, or newer methods of finding solutions to polynomial equations or whatever, that sort of thing. But at the end of it, the research has to develop into what we call as a minimum viable product, and that minimum viable product has to be customer specific. So I'm not going to get into this, but I'll give you 3 examples of things in which I'm personally involved to talk about. Okay, the first project is about water, and this is a huge project. We have a very interesting material which can be used for as a filtration media for water, and that in the long term can replace chlorine. And this water is used for a variety of applications, from shipping, basically ballast water management systems, cooling systems on ships, to thermal power plants, to desalination plants, to electrolyzers, to hundreds of these sort of things. That is one sector. The second part of it is an application theory of another material which is used for shielding, and shielding in terms of EMI, EMC, and containing electronic pollution of high density electronic circuitry, right? The third application is of another product which is used for stealth technologies, and these technologies are used to are what we call as reducing the shielding effectiveness by working on both sectors in terms of the reflectivity and in terms of absorption. and what kind of materials that are required. So these are three projects that I'll just give you an example of. Let's talk about EMI EMC shielding, which is an extremely important subject for high density electronic circuits, which is what we want to find in most electronic applications today. So just this evening at 6:30, I was speaking to a friend of mine from the industry who's been hit very hard by by various projects, and they put him into some loop and nothing happens at the end of it. So he was not the right candidate to talk about it, but it is always nice to, I mean, as we say in the armed forces, we never lose. We either win or we learn. So I think for him, I told him that you haven't lost, you learned something, and keep that lesson with you. Now here, the question was very simple. He said, okay, I'm funding this whole project through my company for EMI, EMC shielding of high density electronic circuits. It can be having variety of applications in space, missiles, torpedoes, weapon system, fuses, hundreds of things where this application is. So his one question was, okay, and we told him we'll finance it for you. And this is in touch after having talking to a very interesting discussion between three academic institutions across the world. Two of them I can name. The third I am not permitted to say so. One is IIT Delhi. The second is NTU in Singapore, and the third very famous institution in the US. So these three people have been working with us on developing this particular concept. Now, when you speak to industry, he says, you tell me what my top line is and what my bottom line is, what the business case is, what the cash flows look like. Then I'm going to stick my nose into this research. Otherwise, I'm no interest in getting into this. That's a straightforward answer. And this is the industry. When I speak to the IIT, he said, we can do this for you, but you have to pay for us. So we paid a lot of money to IIT for this whole project. And they did a wonderful work, and it was world-class work, which stood up against whatever was done in Singapore and US. And I think IIT Delhi's report and trials and lab testing was far superior than what we got from both NTU and in America. So if you give them a problem statement and if you fund it, I think some of our research institutes and IITs, which requires you to do very fundamental research, not applied research, very fundamental research on properties, on they're calculating hundreds of things, Young's modulus, magnetorestrictive properties, permeability, corrosion resistance in different media, from alkalis to acids to ozone, etc. Very fascinating stuff. So the answer to that question was, you fund it, we give it, and we funded them and they gave us. Then we worked with another university on designing filtration media for thermal power plants, desalination plants in the shipping industry. Right now, here again, we had the same involvement. He said, we can do this. We'll make the jigs, fixtures, set up the tool, the test bench, and we'll carry out all these studies on CFDs and whatever else that they had to do, because it was a velocity heat transfer issue. Basically, you're doing secondary cooling of thermal power plants, so heat transfer is a very important issue. And under heat transfer, the heat transfer is more efficient if your velocity flows are higher. But at the same time, there's microbial infection of these secondary cooling systems, because they are drawn upon from seawater or from brackish water or whatever, which provides cooling systems to these plants. Now, here was the problem, that we are using chlorine, and chlorine, in whatever dilution form that you do, still goes back into the water body. When it goes back into the water body, it sticks onto plankton and some other stuff, which I was explained in great detail by this biologist friend of mine. He's got a PhD. I forget from where, somewhere in Europe. I forget where, somewhere in Europe, on microbial contamination of secondary cooling systems by microbes and all of that. So he was very happy. I said, I'm willing to do this job, and I'll do this job. I said, okay, we'll fund you. You go ahead and do it. So now here, where we are willing to fund this research, and they're not small amounts of money, they're fairly large amounts of money. And the industry is capable of doing it. I mean, the academic institution is capable of doing it, but we know we got a business case around it. We know that means if we can replace chlorine with a physical filtration media, we are walking, not walking, we are, what is the word, singing all the way to the bank hereafter. It's a huge change, whether it's Belas water management systems and all of that. So that is a process where an industry academia interface took place, and we were able to conceive of a product which has got commercial applications, and they are on this side. The third application was on RCS reduction. Here again, we are looking at another material which was supposed to reduce the RCS cross section for aircraft, and very specifically for glass. Whilst you could sort out the geometry of most fighter aircraft or whatever UAVs, etc., or not UAVs, fighter aircraft and transport aircraft and long-range maritime patrol aircraft, etc., by playing around with geometry. But if you had an aircraft like the P-8I Boeing, to reduce its cross-section so that it's not detectable by radar, one of its largest horns, or which it propagates loudly, is the windows, because you are not able to put the radar absorbent material on it. So we worked on a solution on this, that so that you would still have the transparency, and yet the glass would have a much less reduced cross-sectional response to RF programs. So these are three examples that I can quote where there was a good understanding, the fundamentals were understood, the properties of the materials were understood, and then you played around with the different properties of this material for different use cases. So you combined A, B, D and produced a use case. Then you combined A, B, E, and F and produced a different use case. So we have done that, and we have now been able to design different products outside this material, working with the academia. At this time, we couldn't reach out to the industry because the industry is us. So we have both these two things together. So we are able to do it. One last point, as far as the sort of scope of work in R&D in India is concerned, and I think General Ghosh brought out that point very clearly, is that we are forever chasing the tail light. I remember when I was in Tata's huge hue and cry about TR modules, right? Using gallium at that time, I forget whether it was gallium arsenide or gallium nitride. So we did gallium arsenide for many years till we realized the rest of the world was at gallium nitride. When we went to gallium nitride, we found out, no, this is all old. Let's go to the next thing. So when you look at the kind of papers which are there on the internet, on IEEE, IEEE, the many of these papers that you can get, you see the kind of papers that you're getting from Vietnam, from Philippines, from China, and you see the papers that we're getting from India. I mean, maybe we are not publishing it. It's quite possible. I'm not saying that everything is published and all that, but these people are very good. South Korea, so amazed at the kind of work that they did in South Korea. And in fact, one of the South Korean paper was the basis for us to explore the possible potential of this material for reducing RCS. It was a South Korean paper. He was not talking about submarine periscope fighter. He was talking about different issues. He was talking about shielding effectiveness. But this association of the academic paper on one hand and the application of how could use it gives us a new product. The last point that I want to say is that this whole business of research and development cannot be given a very broad brush. For example, in the private sector, we have seen all the research and development to find alternatives to the COVID thing was by the private sector. We didn't want government. Of course, he got money. He got some 3,000 crores or something to develop it. But he knew that 3,000 crores would multiply to 3 lakh crores. The Serum Institute made that money. People benefited from it, and you are through. There also in the other sector that we have done some good work is on software. There are many things that we have developed in software. Much of the algorithms. These are some views, some practical experiences that I've had over the last 1 year. There are many other examples I can quote where academic, industry, and services have very successfully done jobs. And there are many examples where we had to sort of row upstream to get to it. But by and large, the I can say on a positive note that many things are changing. So research has to be very clearly defined. And as far as investments in research are concerned, they will only come if there's a business case for it. And all of us here must find out those business cases. If I know that my RCS reduction thing is going to fit onto 800 aircraft, each of the aircraft I'm going to get at least $1.5 million worth of work, then I'll spend a lot of time trying to do that job. It's $1 billion of work. I know. So these are some initial thoughts.
Thank you, Sujeet, for that very candid views you have shared with us. And but I'm glad that you have been, really been doing this, and you're sharing those experiences with us, and maybe it gives a certain degree of practicality. So before I come on to the next question, thank you very much to all our panelists for sharing their views. So the way I look at it is that the linkages are there already, and now it's very good to see that some of them have been used by Sujeet in his recent work which he has done, and that is heartening in a way, irrespective of what the end result was. That especially where he said that one of our institution produced original research which was world class. So that is is very heartening. So essentially, he's using the word use case, and I think R&D has to go into some sort of revenue in the end. And I think a lot of opportunities are being thrown up now with the emerging technologies. And one good thing which is happening for us, I feel, is that a lot of it is related to IT, whether it's AI, ML, anything. So, there we are having a strength and an opportunity matching in the good old SWOT here in our country. And the fact is that today the industry in our country, where especially they are working on the cutting edge, in spite of getting people from some of the good institutions or whatever, they have had to create academia within the industry to make them industry ready. We know the companies which are doing this, and fairly rigorous courses after having getting trained engineers, they train them to be able to make them ready for producing something which is converting into revenue. And of course, what has certainly happened recently is Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, and a lot of policies which are pro-industry are coming through. And the very important importance being given to export, for example. So these are very good. But if you look at the ecosystems outside, and they are different, slightly different. And my first exposure to this was in 1986. In fact, the reason of making this platform, part of the energy I get is from that initial feeling. When I went for my master's to UK, I found that over there was a very close linkage between the institution I was studying in and the industry. There will be very focused, specific areas, something like what Commodore Sujeet Samaddar said. But the thing which was there was that the industry is coming, giving a very focused input, and then that is very quickly getting converted into a product which is giving revenue to the company which is giving the research. So that was happening, and the government was not involved in that. It was the linkage was so strong that they knew that this top-notch institution will give them something which will immediately get converted into a product, get plugged in, and give them a revenue. So that was happening there. So they are able to identify those things, and the connect between the industry and the academia was so strong, and both of them knew that it's symbiotic. If the industry is not able to produce something which is going to give them revenue, then they will not get and those are the days when suddenly the industry over there in UK, the academia there was told that you have to fend for yourself, no more government funds. So it became literally a situation where the institution will exist only if it does something which produces money for the industry. So that, and this ecosystem you see in Silicon Valley, General Envy is talking to us from there as he's visiting. So you see what is happening in the Silicon Valley. In the Silicon Valley, they have somehow got everything together, where they've got an ecosystem which is accepting a high risk investment. This word venture capital has come from there. And they are producing things which really move into an area which nobody understands. And then suddenly when they are world leaders, then everybody else tries to regulate them, as you're seeing in the case of what's happening in the global tech companies being regulated by various places, because they have reached a level. But initially they took off and nobody knew where they were going. So that ecosystem is permitting them to do that. And That actually sort of brings me to the question which I am now going to put, and that is that the linkage between R&D, revenue, and actual business success. This has to be understood by the people who are in all the places together, and not only defense, I would say, generally speaking. And it's emerging in our case. And I think another thing which we must look at is public funding is one thing, but we have this very strong investment ecosystem in our country. And you have this concept of unicorns which are coming up, and you see the moment retail investors come in, you get very large sums of money. And those are not loans, and nobody is looking at it. They, some essentially revenue may or may not come, but it's like a sort of a thing which takes care of the venture capital. Maybe I'm a little outside my area of expertise in this, but that's the sense I get. So out of all these positives which are together, of course, there are a lot of frustrations in what we have not succeeded. And sometimes we come across certain people who are very obdurate, no doubt. But I have, in my experiences, there are a lot of people who are non-obdurate, who are open also. That's why things are getting done also, after all. How is this happening? It's not. If everybody is obdurate, nothing will happen. So my point is that in the present scenario, what is it that we feel? How is it that we can make this linkage so strong that research goes into industry, converts to profits to the shareholders, and this virtuous circle becomes so strong that it becomes the one to go to. No matter how much of policies anybody makes, really that won't take its place. So that is what, if I could have the views of any one of the panelists, please. Go ahead, General Ghosh, please.
As I earlier brought out, sir, this linkage is delivering as far as these prime IITs are concerned. The emulation of this model to the other institutes, higher education institutes, is what is following now. Problem was of their funding. If you look at all the IITs and the NITs which have been converted into IITs, each one of them have become very contemporary. As I read, I read about 20 odd websites of IIT Roorkee and all these Guwahati and others. Everyone has come out with certain contemporary requirements. Firstly, they have got their curriculum revised, or they have introduced subjects like what India is going to look at. What is your society's needs today? Like COVID came up, we just discussed. COVID was not a private sector effort only. It was Covishield, which came up in collaboration with that AstraZeneca and the other one. With that, they came up. Covaxin came up on his own. So it is collaborative R&D which is going to pay off. And that collaboration, both the sides, industry and academia, have to work for that. As far as, I'll start one by one, academia. What the academia has done, firstly, it has got certain niche. Firstly, it is at the higher level, suppose. You have the principal scientific advisor who is, they have a office which is laying down the priorities of the society, for that is Indian society. We are not looking at global context. What is the requirement of the Indian society and what is to be delivered, and what are the missions they are laying down, let it be a AI or semiconductor, whatever we have been hearing, quantum mechanics and other. Once that has been laid out, in the meantime, like I was reading IIT Chennai website, which is my alma mater also, they have gone in for, they have introduced marine engineering, which is where we are looking at exports, we are looking at tapping the MRO market. So marine engineering as a discipline is coming in. They are introducing interdisciplinary subjects. Like there is a guy doing data sciences and public policy. Now data sciences is still BTech, public policy is for a MA. So it is an interdisciplinary approach, because data sciences will be utilized for public policy if you're going to have data-driven, evidence-based policies and procedures which you want to bring in. So this type of thing is already being visualized. They have got centers of excellence. Each of these IITs have got different centers of excellence, which is their sort of specialization in a particular field or in a particular discipline. Now, there are common linkages, like Samsung is an industry which has picked all its industrial centers with these IITs. There are about 7 IITs across which the Samsung has collaborated. Similarly, Wipro is collaborating with maybe Bangalore and others in its vicinity, Hyderabad and all, these IITs are getting on with Wipro. Bombay, Tata took on, the electric vehicle came up, that is becoming a research. So all present requirements, contemporary requirements, homegrown requirements is what the academia is looking at in terms of what has to be delivered. Now, what is it looking? It is looking at funding. That funding has to come from the industry. So while this chapter, the academia is looking forward for getting the support of the industry in terms of funding, it is also providing the forward sort of a linkage towards the industry as to what is going to market. So the industry comes back, says, I want to market this product as Commodore Samaddar brought out, please define the problem correctly. If your mission statement is clear, be it the armed forces or the civil industry, be it a SME or a startup or a prime industry, they have to define what is my requirement. Based on that requirement, now they are also setting up their technology hubs in these institutions. So there is a person who is coming in for a fellowship program at the BTech level or at the MTech level or at the postgraduate level or the PhD level. There were people who are looking at a particular problem of that industry to be solved through a long-term sort of a process. Or if it is a business requirement immediately, then they are finding what is the kind of research available, what kind of inter-consultancy can be carried out, what kind of forward and backward linkages can be established, so that both are in a win-win situation. And finally, it is a collaboration of the industry, academia, public, private, everything together is what is going to deliver. Regarding the level of papers, that point came up again earlier. I fully agree that this level of papers are not up to the mark. Why? Because there is no kind of a peer review. Anyone is writing anything. Unless there is a proper peer review by people who are in the know of that particular research subject, then only it should get published. Like, just an example, these two books went through hell for me in the last 6, 7, 8 months. It got reviewed by two national people, two national experts, and then only it starts getting published. So that is the level of publications that are required. We will surely reach that level, and it is now the policies are such getting aligned that they are going to deliver. Maybe it will take some time. We cannot become South Korea or China or US or Japan, Germany immediately, because the whole model was private sector doing the thing for them much earlier, and we are now getting in at a very late stage. So it will happen. Fortunately, there is a complete disruption which is happening. Let it be supply chains, let it be alliances, let it be geostrategy, geopolitics, geoeconomics, whatever we call it. In the whole process, we have to sort of exploit this advantage which is coming our way, and these linkages have to be so shown now that they will deliver in the next 5, 10 years. And that is the growth trajectory which even the world is forecasting as far as the country is concerned.
So thank you very much for that, General Ghosh. We have Mr. Pradeep Gupta, who is participating in today's deliberations. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Pradeep Gupta. You want to say something?
Thank you, General. Regarding the academia, industry, and the R&D institutions linkages, if you see, I'll not name the premier technology institutions some 20-25 years ago, when this Buffers contract was truncated midway. We didn't get the drawings and details, so we had to do some reverse engineering, something. So I was part of the key member of that team. So I used to run around those institutions. And they were working on some logic that we'll put the shell in wind tunnel, do this thing, paper. Then earlier days, there was no 3D printing, but paper models were created over it. But it didn't give us confidence, so we thought that we have to somehow make this shell. And we took that task ourselves and basically did on a workshop method. And after 5-6 years, we were able to do it properly. And now we are producing 155 mm shell. Same thing was for the barrel. So this is where hit and trial, there was a disconnect between the academic institutions and the industry where I was part of that industry.
I'm glad that you were given specific cases. But now coming back a little bit to this, our current day discussion. So I will reframe the question a little bit. So I think there are a lot of friction. There's a lot of problem. Otherwise, why we are talking about this topic? If there were no problem, then we would have been all hunky dory. But we got some very great minds here on the screen. In spite of the problems, in spite of the friction, we have seen successes also. I personally have witnessed to so many successes. So it's not all bad news. There's a lot of good news happening there, and I think the tide seems to be changing to some extent. So the thing which I am trying to get from this panel is, see, one is I am trying to use a totally new term. The term I am saying is that what, we come from a system where we were getting adulatory success. You did something when you're working for a government setup. What you do, you get respect. You do something, your peers look at you. So that is enough for us actually. But actually, if you look at the industry, it looks at commercial success. So while the government adulatory success will be there, we've got iconic figures who we respect and regard so much because they did so much for our country. But the real thing will start happening when there's a virtuous circle comes out through commercial success, use cases as was being mentioned, and even what we are talking about just now. So how is it that we apply our mind, we think there are good people. Let's look at the goodness of it. Let's not look at there are good people there who will be able to put their heads together in each one of these areas, the academy, the industry, the R&D, who can come together, and there are success stories. And that's what I'm trying to get this, little, how do we cross this Rubicon, so to say, where we can, have things start falling into place and there's snowballing of success stories. What is it that we can do? That's a question which I had sort of looked at. So may I have the views of Commodore Samaddar, please?
Right, thank you. Very interesting discussion again. So very quickly, I think we're not playing villains and actors here. Both sides are villains. The government is an equal villain, and so is the industry. And both sides. I just went through a 2.5 hour meeting on non-ferrous materials. So both sides are saying government should do this, industry should do this, and all that. But just as the government is responsible to its citizens, industry is responsible to its shareholders, and nobody is going to change that. Nothing happens out of charity, either in government or in industry. Point one. Now, on this very point that you said, the point is that we must have the topology right. If you're looking at mission statements, etc., then each of those mission statements has to be converted to what is known as a product. Okay, this is a mission that you want, and what is the product that you want? And from there starts this. I remember I may have missed some steps here a long time ago when I was with Tata and Israel Aerospace Industries. There was a fantastic guy there called Rotem, who taught me many of these things about new product development. They have a schema there for that. How they introduce a new product. Idea generation, design thinking, prototype, SDR, PDR, system requirements review, and all of that. The FRD, facilities requirement definition document, all of this. But even Israel Aerospace Industry is paid by the government of Israel. It's like a government-owned entity, quite like our PSUs. But they don't make an investment unless they follow the topology of this new product development schema. Now, even in our case, if you have a new product development schema, then in each of those boxes of the process, as you said, in this box, I need support from, I'm just saying, I need inputs from the user, I need inputs from whatever, XYZ. Okay. This box, I need the academia to work out this 50 differential equations or polynomial equations or computational fluid dynamics and all that, which no industry guy can do. So that can only be done by the academia chaps. He knows how to work this out on wave generators, this, that, whatever else he's got. This other box, I'm now looking at beginning to the design part. In that design part, all those things that are required have to be put down as to what will be your BTP jobs, what will be your BTS jobs, what will you buy, what will you make, how does the BOM look like. Once you got that BOM in place, then you're looking at how much of it can be can be built as a prototype. So here, where the answer to what General Mutharu pointed out is that we need to just start a little early. So I think one of the ways that we can get this, General Mutharu very clearly brought out, how do we get these three things interconnected? Industry, user, academia. We can only get interacted if we are embedded in those places. User has to be embedded in industry. Industry has to be embedded in the user. User has to be embedded in academic. Industry has to be academic. We have done this exercise in India 2-3 times. So here, I think our plan should be that we should have some cross-pollination. We should put our people, after you've done your masters, we should ask some of our people who are bright guys, okay guys, you can apply for your PhD, lage raho. I don't know, how can we do that?
Good question. Good question. Actually, now you see, General Helbisa, I am coming to you for help here because we have heard so many, very a lot of people are. There are such good people here on the screen.
Yeah,
They are really trying. So please help us find some ways.
I missed out Sujit's major portion because I ran out of power. So by the time I could plug in the cable and all, time was lost. But just to answer a few things, first of all, Mr. Pradeep Gupta's point, ki corporates may, is there somebody who will collect 500 crores and say, I'll give you an example of Bharat Forge. You see, he personally, he has told me, he says, I have set aside 500 crores for this project. And my dream is to make India self-reliant in the field of armaments. And that was a time when he was frustrated because initially, there was a lot of, as usual, the military's preference for imported things and all. People were trying to put all kind of, spokes here and there. And that was the year 2008 or 9. Today is 2023. How many years? Is closing to 2 decades. Is going to be 2 decades virtually. And we have not taken a call on that system. He has actually put in 500 crores for this. So we have not. So and I don't think, I will not say that the army is to be blamed for it. I feel it is the government who has to take a call. After all, government also has to have a collection of learned people who should guide them. If the army puts across some point of view and says, I don't need this gun because iska turning radius zyada hai, ya iska, iska weight is more, then somebody has to from top intervene and say, okay, you take this as Mark 1, and for the time being, we have given you some other systems, you deploy them in those areas, and these can be used in those areas where this is not a major criteria. So it's not that the first gun you get, you have to deploy it in Sikkim only way. You can use it here, and over a period of time, we will optimize and give you a better version. So till the time these kind of policies, as I said, the consumer here. Now in consumer technologies and goods, there is not a big problem because the company also knows that if I am going to come out with a new version of, I will say, a golf club, even a golf set, there are guys who are interested and they will buy it. We have to talk about, defense technologies. Defense technologies, the biggest stumbling block is the military itself. Out of that chain which I told you, the military is unwilling to accept systems, actually I'm confused. What the military wants, I at least in the army, I have not been able to clarify myself. You look at the FRCV, what has come out, the FRCV QRs which they are asking. There is not a single attribute in any tank in the world which has not been included. So therefore, this product which you are asking, today there is no equivalent of that anywhere in the world. Neither the M1 meets those requirements, neither the Leopard, nor the Challenger, nor the Armata. Aapne har ek ki achhi qualities leke, you have put it there. Now you want the Indian industry to come up and do it for you as an IDDM project. How can they do it? No other country will also be able to do it. So first of all, I feel that as far as defense innovation is concerned, it is important that we create a culture of innovation within the defense forces itself. Earlier we had this. If you go back to the 80s, we had the option after 5 years after doing our MTech, we had the option to go to DRDO on permanent secondment. A lot of my instructors went there and played a great role in developing the Prithvi system, the Agni system, the bridge layer tank, the Arjun, or the Pinaka. All these are courtesy our instructors who moved into that thing, and they also became generals there. That is another good thing. You see, they became generals there, they became brigadiers there, because at that time there was a policy that 1/3 staffing of DRDO is to be done through the services. Over a period of time, services at times, especially the army, said we can't spare people. So first of all, I think we have to, look at it, give a holistic view, especially to innovations in defense. And whatever Ranjit may say, I am not happy in the way the IDEX is being utilized, because IDEX is being utilized to make a testing system, which can be done by the industry anywhere. You just tell them, okay, I need so many, devices to do the gun pullback. This is the design, please do it. There's nothing big to do. You pick up the 105 millimeter, pullback device and give it to him. He'll make it for the Bofors. He'll make it for the next one. So you have to see the quality of work there being. I feel the IDEX money and the Technology Development Fund money has to go into the areas of what I will call generic or foundational technologies. You can say, okay, I've made the air defense ship, or I have made this aircraft carrier, or I have made that LCA, or I'm making this light tank. But if you go look deeper into that, you find the aviation module has come from Russia. You find the gas turbines have come from UK. You find the sensors of armaments have come from Israel and all that. So what are you doing? You're basically doing an assemblage of all these things. Only that's all. So we have to use the IDEX money, because we have ultimately concluded that basically the problem is finance. The industry is not willing to spend till the time they are very clear about the ROI. The government has limited finance. I feel what the government spares is more than enough. What the government gives to DRDO and all these is more than enough, but it is not being spent properly. There is nobody who is guiding them where to put the money. I will like the money to be put in generic technologies, in foundational technologies, so that I become self-reliant in these. When I become, this is what South Korea has done. South Korea got that German engine 1 decade back to power their K9s. Within 5 years, they came up with their own one. The Germans are angry at them. The MTU was very angry that they didn't done that, but they have made it. So now they are no longer dependent on them. Have we done that? We had the Arjun back with us for 40 years. And today, how much he's asking? He's asking 20 crores for it, 28 crores for it. Which means your Arjun tank the cost of each tank will go up to 50 to 70 crores, just because there is so much of import content. So the money has to be put in IDEX money and has to be put in this, and somebody has to identify the gaps that, okay, In Pinaka, this was the import content. Now, if I have to gradually reduce the import content, I must now focus on innovation in these areas. In the Arjun, this was the import content. Now I should commission projects to do, but you take the gun of the Arjun, or the main gun of the Arjun, the 120 millimeter. It's a beautiful weapon system we had made 40 years back. If somebody was guiding the whole thing, somebody had a vision that, okay, next year, maybe, I will be looking at more powerful guns or more efficient guns. He should have commissioned the project in DRDO. Okay, next caliber will be 130 because we already have a 125 with us from Russia. And you also go in for a 105 millimeter, highly optimized light gun. And these two projects should have gone ahead, but nobody thought about it. So today, net result is when the light tank is being made, in the Arjun, at least you had the main gun, which was indigenous. In the light tank, you are importing that also. And from where? From a small country like Belgium. So there is something wrong in the overall manner in which somebody is planning these innovations in the defense. And, till the time there is no clarity in this regard, I don't think we will keep doing these. We'll be spending the money. You'll put the money in 150 projects and see the kind of projects which are coming out through those. I'm not talking about the Navy and Air Force, but see what the kind of problem is the Army is putting forward there. At least 90% of them can be resolved through in-house innovation. If we allow our CATE establishments, the three major establishments of MCME, MCTE, EME school, and similarly Shivaji and look at AFPC, if you give them, empower them, they don't have to do it themselves. They have the intellectual firepower because all your NTechs and PhDs land up there finally. So they have the intellectual firepower. They are located in good cities or near good cities. They can always, get these things done up there. Why do you have to use the IDEX route to do all this? IDEX should be only, somebody should look in the, in DDC technology. Why can't we, in the next 4 or 5 years, look at indigenizing the DDCs, which are being used across the board in all detectors? No, we will not. We will keep importing them from here and there. And then Bell will claim that, no, I have got 95% indigenization. Why can't we do the same with pulse fire amplifiers or traveling wave tubes, which are being used in radars? We will not look at these. And DRDO, unfortunately, is also not looking at these because they're looking at full systems, because full systems give them optics and publicity. So I feel that, some kind of a centralized planning has to be done, though it is against the norms today that, but at least for defense, there's something that needs to be done at the CDS level. Why at the CDS level? Because there we'll have people from all the three services joining in, and possibly, the best practices of each service will surface there, especially the Navy and Air Force, which I feel in the field of technology and indigenization, they are far, far ahead of the Army. At least they have a vision. If they have a vision now, like the Navy has started the development of diesel engines for lighter craft. It's a very good step forward. At least next 5-10 years, we will not have to depend on other countries for these kind of systems. So, somebody has to take the call there. And also somebody has to strategize the coming up. These two DICs have been created. How do we go about developing these two defense industrial corridors? Should we follow the cluster approach or not, or should we just allow it to freewheel and grow on its own? These are the things which need to be communicated to the bureaucracy. That is not going to be enough. Now we have taken a call that, I'll give you an example. We've taken a call that next how many years, 5 years or something, our exports in defense will touch $5 billion. I just read it yesterday. It's around 1.9 today. I can make that touch $10 billion, provided that we follow a approach. You'll be surprised to know that the requirement of 5.56 ball ammunition itself, the world's requirement is around $10 billion. It's such a low-tech item, just being made in the public sector. You have the complete technology of the NATO 5.56 with you. Why don't you scale up or flood the market with this? Just scale up and make this and just export this. You'll touch out of the $10 billion, you will touch 5 billion here itself if you can do that. You know, this kind of thought process, nobody is thinking on these lines. And then companies, like I'm in touch with companies who are really wanting to go into at least the land systems part pack. They are willing to spend money, but there is no assurance. There is no assurance from the military is hell-bent on importing. And the bureaucrats say that till the time he doesn't give a nod, we can't say anything, we can't do anything. So these are the kind of actual problems which are there. And I feel the driver for innovations in the defense sector has to be the military. It can't be DRDO, it can't be, because they are all there with their own interests in mind. The DPSUs are there because that's giving them their daily bread. The DRDO scientist is there because he possibly joined that. So ultimately, who will look after the interest of the defense forces with regard to their equipment readiness? It is the defense forces themselves. And I feel that time has come when why should only IITs be the technology incubation hub? Why can't MCME or why can't Shivaji not be that? Because we have never talked about it. We have never, when I made one of the vice chancellors, vice chancellor of Gujarat Technical University, it was a case of recognizing our armament engineering course as a equivalent to MTech. When he came for his first visit to EME School, Baroda, I mean, and he had been brought into GTU by the Prime Minister from Canada. He was basically NRI. And he told me, he says, see, Jan Saab, your institution ko dekh ke I remember the institutions in US and Canada. I mean, it is so beautiful. It is so well equipped. He visited all the faculties. And he says, where is the question? I mean, we will, seeing this, so anybody will, just by the ambience itself, he said, there is no problem in guaranteeing, in recognizing your course as MTech. I said, at least look at the course content and other things, Finally, it went through. So I'm just saying the infrastructure which we have created in these establishments is very good. Look at the infrastructure created by DRDO in Ahmednagar or in Chennai. It's par excellence, but question is it's not being utilized. So this problem is there. How it can be resolved? I mean, I feel that a lot of heads have to work together and find a way out. But a lot still needs to be done. I will not say that everything is hunky-dory. Yes, there are individual cases of some people doing some good work, but overall, if we have to achieve genuine self-reliance, and that too by 1945-47, as everybody's wanting it to be, by the time we complete 100 years, then I think somebody has to sit down and come out with a policy and a strategic plan. Then only, at least in the defense technology sector. Other areas, as I said, you can leave them to freewheel because profits will drive those innovations, but not here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. In fact, I asked for help and you stepped forward and sorted out a lot of cobwebs there. Now, this is a very complex thing which we looked at. And first and foremost, when I look at this panel now very carefully, I discover that there are some tremendous people there in the screen in front of me. And I'm fortunate that I'm being able to, talk to all of you. I must say, like each one of you, what you have achieved in life is like tremendous. Cutting edge technologies, working on it, struggling with the system. Mr. Pradeep Gupta is even today running around getting things done. Sujeet has told about some things which are like way beyond which I could have, way beyond what I could have thought. General NB has given it such a clear thought. Ranjit has got such a sharp grasp of over the systems and everything, the factuals, and he's written a book on it. So actually, I salute all of you for that. But now I want to just close this thing in a way where I would start with Mr. Pradeep Gupta, then I'll go to Sujit, then Ranjit, and then finally in LB to just close the session. I will collect it. We've gone out. Now let's come back together. So how I want to address the last bit to this very august panel, I must say, as I salute you, all of you, is this that within our little thing which we have got together here in this platform, with these all of you together, within our very limited resources which we have, what do we have? We have a strength of wisdom, which is obvious. We have a strength of understanding of the problems. We have got some, embedded. The word came from Sujit that we could embed people across. Then General NB has given his wisdom as to how we can move forward. All of this. So there's some crunch points that maybe I would even make it even tighter. That within our group, what is it that in the coming year we can do amongst ourselves to become, to maybe give some sort of an output through our whatever resources we have, which can help people, or maybe which can sometimes, you talked about papers, like Sujit said that he read this paper somewhere and he used the technology. So there is a strength even in what we are doing, I feel. And because you carry each one of you, your opinion matters, because you are not just so you are actually somebody with so much respect in the system. So what is it that we can do as a group to further this linkage, or to further this, to take our nation forward, ourselves, do something. I'm sure we can do something. Though I'm not able to think of that. I have some ideas, but I would now defer to all of you. So what is it that we can do as a group, Mr. Pradeep Gupta, to start with you, then Ranjit, then Sujit, then Ranjit, and then finally General NB. Some guidance I seek. Mr. Gupta, please.
Thank you, Jan Saab. At the outset, I thank General NB for giving detailed views about the IDEX. Now, coming to this question posed by General Justice, that what the group can do, what immediately comes to my mind is to generate ideas. This group can, at the most, immediately can generate ideas, and those ideas can be picked up by the environment, by the people who are interested in the domain. So this is the immediate thing what we can do. Regarding the other things which is to be done on ground, or to engage with some institution, that also we are exploring, and that will happen. But the generation of ideas is happening in this very forum today, and in other panel discussions and other solo talks also. So generation of ideas, that can happen, and a very good thing is that all the ideas, whatever I have listened in the past 10 months or so, are very practical ones. So if the users or the industry or the academia is not using them, so then it is up to them. But then the enlightened people here are generating ideas, and we must fine tune more and more in this direction. That's the take, what I will suggest.
Thank you, Mr. Gupta. Sujit, may I request you for your views?
So thanks a lot. I think very fascinating discussion. I've had a very long day. I started at about 6:30 today, and it's now 9 o'clock. But I still seem to have a lot of energy from whatever you have said, sir. That's good. So basically, I think instead of solving 1,000 problems in the next 1 minute, let's just try and solve 2 problems. And my prioritization of those two problems are centered around those 3 things that we speak about all the time: capacity, capability, and skills. These are the 3 building blocks on which everything grows, whether it's innovation, whether it's industry, whether it's businesses, whether it's the armed forces, everybody on that. So on these 2 things, there are the skills, as we said, those have to be now learned in-house. And I think I take the idea what General NB said. We got some fantastic training institutions which can give any IIT a run for their money, frankly. Not only in terms of infrastructure, but also in the quality of the instructors that we have there. Don't forget that. not just about having some labs and all that, but also the quality of the students that you have in a facility, and also the quality of the, let's say, the teaching staff or directing staff or whatever way we describe them. That's the first thing. So let's try and figure out how can we put together ideas that will first increase the capability and skill sets of existing technical institutions within the armed forces itself. So we don't have to go running, jumping with our hat on the ground कि भाई हमारे लिए कुछ कर दो, हम खुद कर लेंगे. As General NBA very correctly said, if we put our minds to it, we can do it. That's the first one. The second thing is what happens is through osmosis, and everybody benefits through osmosis. At some stage, all of you are very senior to me, wherever else that we can. But let us just put that 0.01% of the officer cadre of each service will be exposed to either DRDO or a PSU or an IIT or whatever. He has to go and do something there. Either he does a PhD, or he becomes a production manager, or he works as a DRDO scientist Z or whatever they call them. ऐसे करते हैं. ये दो चीज करते हैं. Let's try and put together a paper which says that improve capacity, capability, skill sets of our existing things, which is a small delta. And if you need money for it, Sarkar will give you, if you got a business case. Second, I know we are shortage of everything. The CAG will tell you that you're already short of 10,000 officers. I think the Navy is short of some 500-600 officers. Air Force may be short of so many more officers. But whatever else we do, let us try and plug in some of these guys who will go into the DPSUs or to private sector. No, let them go to private sector, and let them go to DRDOs, let them go to IITs. 0.01% per year. I think 0.01% is also too much. 0.001% to de do. I'm not saying give me a lot. 0.001%, and that officers on call. Na? It's not as if he's disappeared over the horizon. If something happens, we can call that guy back and go command some battalion or go fly some aircraft or whatever. वो कर सकते हैं उसको. He's not disappeared. So I think my sense would be to just plug on these two lines that might help us. That's my suggestion. I may be off the mark, but these are two ideas that have developed from the discussion today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sujit. In fact, yes, certainly we can. I think that's certainly we can work towards that. So, Jan Ghosh, your views, please, on crunch points for what we can do to get something out of what we discussed today. Jan Ghosh.
I think I'll go with Commodore Sujit as far as that paper is concerned, because what has come out today is that there are certain glaring aspects. Firstly, you're not having the right man at the right place, be it at the highest level of the government to the on-ground level where it is actually mattering. Secondly, we have got specific existing structures which can be optimized, which is very clear. How it has to be done, the views are available with us. So we have to literally make this paper in such a manner that we give out the what are the lessons and how it is to be corrected in a very sharp and concise manner, bringing out. And what I feel is it can be best done by a veteran community than a serving community, because in service we have got a whole lot of restrictions. Like if you look at cross attachments or cross organizational views which should come, it is very much required. What was possible, as you said, we should go to DRDO. We must look at our organization, where are the flags or where are the gray areas, and how the whole thing can be optimized. And if this paper can bring out, like you look at IDEX or you look at DOI, why it is not functioning well? Because you don't have the right man there who is to drive it. If you have the right person with the right mindset, pushing for innovations, pushing for foundation technologies is what is the requirement. But who understands it? Not the people who are running it. But if you have a veteran putting in a paper with what should be done, I think at some stage someone will listen to it. So I think that's the best way of putting all our ideas onto what it should be. Thereafter, it fructifies or not, we are doing other things. We can keep educating the academia, and as they grow, the younger crop as what is being planned. But that is the long-term solution. But the immediate solution is to put this act together, I think. I'll go by that.
Thank you, Gen Ghosh, for that. NV sir, can you please sum up the discussion and give your final, whatever the issues you want us to do?
Yeah, so it's been a very interesting discussion, and of course, yes, some of us have launched diatribes against some agencies, because that is the only way we can vent out your frustration. But I feel that as a forum, with a collection of such experience and wise people, what we can do first is to shape opinion and change mindsets. That's very important, because we have talked about it and we said, this doesn't happen, that doesn't happen. Now, for that, I think we have to continue with the system of dialogues, discussions, and maybe some of us can write articles which they get published and some people take note of it. So that is one. The second thing which came to my mind is, why not commission some of our guys to pen down a defense technology strategy? How exactly we go about doing it? And with Sujeet's, exposure to the Niti Aayog and all, possibly he may be in a position to help us in this regard, because till the time there is no formal recognition of that work will not be of any consequence. So if it can be commissioned by the CDS or by by Niti Aayog or by the NSCS, then I think we are in a position to give out that, and that should look at capability gaps. How to fill up the capability gaps across the three services in vital foundational technologies. And it can give out a long-term plan, maybe up to 2 decades, 3 decades. And it should also look at the early stage financing, how it has to be. So a comprehensive solution can be given based on our experiences. How do we organize early stage financing? How the money being provided by the government is to be put to good use. And here again, I will say that the IDEX money which is being provided is more than enough, provided it is put in areas where it is needed, and not this kind of things which are just coming there and that is only to show to the superiors that out of these many after all, the guy who is heading the design bureau, before he leaves, he has to give out his own appraisal. So he'll say, okay, these many projects were commissioned and these have come to fruition and these many have been. But take it from me that after the first order, no more orders will go to that company, and that startup or whatever it is, it'll have to find its own way to survive. The second is the DRDO military linkage has to be revived, I feel, and that is something which has to be told to the military, because it is of interest to them. At a very early stage of 15 years, you are overlooking a large number of your officers. Might as well give them at 5 or 6 years service the opportunity to take a call. He says, sorry, I don't want to become an ops guy. I want to be a technocrat. So allow me to go to DRDO. I've done my MTech here, and I'll work there for some time. Maybe then through them I'll do my PhD and continue there. So I think that has to be revived, and till the time that is not revived, the effectiveness of DRDO will never ever come to the level which it used to be, at least at the time when we joined. Whatever they did, big or small, but the first thing which they did in the army, the DRDO did, if you remember, was the upgunning of T-55. And that was a unique thing, because it's the first time it was done all over the world, and after we did it, so many countries copied it. And who designed it? It came through ARD, implemented by the army in its base workshop, and how powerful that tank became, and it served us so well for next 40 years. So this linkage of this thing has to be revived, and for that, I think we can use our connection, the services, because it is something which will be of interest to service also. They will also feel that, yes, our officers who are skilled and having the right orientation, they can go back to this organization and deliver there and keep doing it for 60 years, for the next till they are 60. So that has to be done. And of course, the third one is knowledge sharing. What I'm seeing here is that any MSME, any small firm, if they want to do some work, there is a big reluctance from within the armed forces to share information with them. Either everybody wants somebody from top to give the okay. So that top man again looks at somebody. Finally, the ball, by the time this whole thing moves up and it goes to, it's already 6 months have passed and no sanction has come, no approval has come. So I think this decision should be there that, okay, the industry who wants to pick up any self-reliance initiative or who wants to do some indigenization, they are welcome. And you help them out with your drawings, you help them out with all kind of samples, how it is used, where it is fixed. Because then only I think this culture of indigenous innovation will pick up. And one suggestion which I have is all these trophies which we have put in, in the cantonments here and there, tanks and old guns and this, that. Why not gift these to, instead of just putting them on display? I feel that if the industry says, okay, give me one of these obsolete, BRDMs or BTR, please give it to them. Let them dismantle it. Let them, study the whole thing, and possibly they will come out with their own version rather than they have to run to Czech Republic and Poland to get that or to study that. Why not allow them access here in India and let them see? And lastly, I will say that, in most of our universities, we have been able to create a department of strategic studies or something like that, where generally you find military personnel handling the affairs. I will suggest that in all these universities also, and in IITs, a defense industrial vertical should be set up, which can be manned by a combination of, like-minded military officers as well as professors and all. And there we sit down and we build up these core competencies in these universities. So IIT Chennai can, instead of looking across the board, it should focus only on, I will say from the land systems point of view, combat vehicles. Why? Because the ecosystem for combat vehicles is around Chennai. IIT Kanpur should look after armaments and ammunition. Why? Because the ecosystem for that is there. IIT Delhi, apart from what they are doing in the field of ballistics, etc., I feel should also look into this vital aspect of MRO for land systems at least. Why? And all the studies with respect to, technology insertion, life extension, life cycle costing, all that should be done IIT Delhi. Why? Because it is closer to the places where these forces will be, deployed. So whatever comes out from there, so NCR can become a kind of a MRO hub, at least for land systems. So if we go about doing this in a little organized manner, I'm sure that this culture of innovation in our institutions of higher learning has to come in, and it can't be restricted only to IITs. Or NITs, it should be across the board, across all universities, because you never know, some unique innovation, some unique algorithm may come out from Patna University, because those guys are very good in mathematics, isn't it? So we don't have to see that, okay, this algo can only be developed by IIT Bombay. Well, it can come out from there. So we have to look from all these aspects, and from our side, as I said, that whatever opinion building and change of mindsets we can do, it will be good. It will be overall, it will do some overall good to the country. So that's all. Thank you.
Well, thank you, sir. In fact, today listening to this particular panel discussion has been quite a endearing path, unexpected path, which we seem to have traversed with a lot of surprises. So there's an imagery which I'm going to share with you, which is there coming to my mind to make a sense of what we have done today. I think it's the best way I can talk about is entering a mine where you can find diamonds, right? So most of it is dark rock, which you keep crashing your head against and you don't. But eventually, you are lucky you find a diamond, and then first and foremost, it's got the carat. So I think we got a plenty heavy looking carat diamonds in this discussion. I could see that. So then, of course, is the clarity, and the clarity is there. And whatever diamonds are there, I can see a lot of clarity. Each one of your life's experience which you have shared, and now also you see at this age, you are helping people. That means there is a lot of clarity there. So the last thing is the cut. If we are able to do that through whatever we are putting together, in some way, at least we can show some method. We are, after all, we are just a think tank which is trying to do what it can. But somebody picks it up, then the cost will come. The final see which will really make things work. So I hope these diamonds which we have seen today, I don't think in one listening to this entire talk, one will be able to see all of them also. Repeated listening is required to figure out what is there. But thank you very much for everybody for showing us the way forward, and especially after long days, Mr. Pradeep Gupta, Sujeet, both of you especially, and General NB joining us from all the way from the other side of the world.
Of course, my day is beginning now.
Your day is beginning indeed, sir. But thank you very much for taking the effort, for joining, and Ranjit for all your inputs. So with that, viewers, we come to the end of today's discussion. And once again, I thank the panelists for being with us. So do subscribe to our channel if you find what we say is useful. Come back for future videos. We'll keep coming back to you with more such videos and discussions. And with that, I bring this particular panel discussion to a close. Thank you very much, everybody. Jai Hind.